So last day we have discussed about we have started the conditional branch, and we have seen that by reordering the instructions, by putting the useful instruction in a branch relay slot, how we can improve the number of stalling or bubble present in a pipelining. And now we will move forward regarding this conditional branch with some other examples and other scenarios. So instruction reordering, I mean putting useful instruction in a branch relay slot is one solution of the problem that will be created for conditional branch. The another type is what we call branch prediction. What I mean that if there was a way by which I can somehow predict whether the branch will be taken or not, and according to that, if I put the proper instruction within the pipelining, then naturally the number of unwanted instruction present in the pipeline will be minimized and the number of stalling will get resolved, and ultimately you will get a clear pipelining. So that we will start with the topic today, what we call branch prediction. For conditional branch. Okay, now this branch prediction can be of two type also. Okay, two type in the sense depends on that how we are predicting this branch. There is a way by which I can say that before we execute the program, we can by checking the program type, I can decide that whether branch will be taken or not, and that will be fixed forever till execution stops. And that is why this type of prediction we call static branch prediction. And another one where we can dynamically change our mind to realize to assess that whether the branch will be taken in future or not, that is what we call dynamic branch prediction. Okay, so we will start with the static branch prediction first, and we will see that how we can do this. So let's start with the static branch prediction now. So if we start the static branch prediction, you see, it means that we are the prediction that we will do whether branch will be taken or not will be fixed throughout the execution of the problem. Now question is that the first question will come that how we can predict this. I mean, how I will decide that branch will be taken or I will decide branch will be not taken. It cannot be something just like a arbitrary prediction, right? The prediction must have some reason. You see, to realize this reason, let's try to let's write a very simple program in C, a high level language, and then I will write a corresponding assembly level language that is really executed by a computer. And after that, I hope you will realize that depends on which situation we can predict whether the branch will be taken or not. So let's start writing a very simple program first. So let's take something like a addition of 1 to 5, something like that. Okay. So if I write a very simple program in C, then what I can write? I can say that okay, sum equal to 0 is one variable. Then I equal to 5 is another variable, and this two is enough. Then I will start writing say while loop. I suppose that I will consider both cases. I will write program using a entry control loop as well as an exit control loop, and according to that I will design the corresponding instructions also. Okay, and depends on that you will realize that how we can predict this. So if we start with a while loop as an example of entry control loop, I can say that okay, I can design a loop something like while I less than equal to 0, I'm sorry, I is greater than 0, I must say, uh, or why I is not equal to 0, let's write. Okay, here I will simply write sum equal to sum plus I, and then I will decrement the I by 1, as simple as that. And suppose after this line I have one more statement, say sum equal to sum plus say j. Okay, so let's take another variable here, j equal to 10. Okay, now what I will do, I will show you that when we write a program in a high level language something like this, and when computer executes your program, what instructions it first generates from this program. And for this I am taking an example of 8085 microprocessor. Okay, the microprocessor that I have shown you in my previous classes over here. So you see this B, C, D, E, H, L that is shown over here. I told you that these six registers are general purpose registers where you can store some data, and this accumulator is a very special purpose register that what is needed for any arithmetic operations, that is input to the ALU, right? Now as a programmer or as a learner, what I can imagine that all the variables that I am writing in a high level language somehow should be mapped with some register or a memory location. Because when I'm storing, I mean, as a high level language programmer, I'm trying to store 0 or 5 or 10, and this 0, 5, 10 should be stored somewhere in the computer memory, and that memory can be your RAM and can be even your register. Now since register is directly connected with the processor, it will be easier to fetch any data from register. That's why assume that for this particular problem, all these values that is presented in these variables are actually stored in some register. So before we write the corresponding high level language, let's map the variable names with the corresponding registers where I'm getting to store. Okay, so I have variables sum, I have variables I, and I have variables j. Now see, before we understand what I should write in this, what I should map with these three variables, what registers, it can be A, can be B, can be C, can be D, can be H, can be L, can be anything. I mean, presented at least in the as an option in the 8085 architecture. But before we understand, before we think that what register I will write, let's realize some specific instructions that I should use for this program. For example, this addition. What does the addition mean? You know, the corresponding instruction that I have for the addition actually is what we call add. Okay, and after add I should write a variable, I should write a register name. For example, add C. This C is a valid register name in 8085. So add C is a valid instruction in 8085 architecture. And what does it mean? This means accumulator equal to accumulator plus C. What I mean? That content of accumulator will be added with content of C and result will get stored in the accumulator again. So if you, that means the accumulator, the role of the accumulator is hidden within this add C instruction, right? So if you map this particular instruction explanation with this line, if you want to map this, I can easily say that sum must be accumulator. If you put some another register for sum, if you consider, say for example, register B or register C or register D, it's not going to work properly. Because ultimately for summation, I have to either use add C or add B or add E, whatever you use. Underlying hidden register is accumulator. You cannot avoid that. So that's why it will be better if we put accumulator. If we map accumulator with this variable sum, fine. And if this is true, then if you, what I will map with I? I will map I with register C. I can do this. Any register I can take. And register, though the variable J can be anything, for example, register E. Okay. So with this mapping, I will start writing my corresponding program. So first thing is that always remember that in a high level language we have a flexibility that we can initialize all the variables in a single line if they have the same data type. But in case of assembly level language, we don't have this type of facility. I have to write each and every instruction in a separate line. So that means sum has to be initialized by 0 in one line, then I will be equal to 5, then j will equal to 10, like that. Anyway, we will not write sum here, rather we will use this accumulator A for storing 0, because accumulator A is mapped with sum. And how we can write? What is the instruction present in 8085? Let's write it. Obviously you don't have any idea about the instructions. Just I am writing and you watch it. I hope you will at least understand a little bit about the instructions of 8085 that is practically used for solving the problem that you have written in high level language. So the instruction that I will write for storing 0 in accumulator is something like move A 00 H. Remember, this H is hexadecimal. Actually, in assembly level language or machine level language, everything is considered in hexadecimal. That's why whatever you are writing in, when as a high level language programmer, I'm writing this program in this, I'm considering all these values in decimal form, right? But when it will be converted to some machine level form, it will also convert to some, the decimal values will be converted to some hexadecimal values. Anyway, so 0 in decimal is obviously 0 in hexadecimal. That's okay. Next is that I have to initialize I by 5. I means C. So again, in the same way, I can write move C 05. I'm sorry, just a minute. (05H). Okay, then j equal to 10. What does it mean? It means that j means E, so it will be move but I will not write 10 here, rather I will write 0A, because 10 in decimal means A in hexa. So you must very clear about, very much careful about this. Anyway, so this is the part of the initialization in my high level language. In a low level language, and then your loop starts. Now see, there is a very interesting point that here I have a condition first, right? You see, when you are writing the condition first, that means basically what you have to do, I have to check this value of I. I means register C. So what I can do, you see, if the condition is true, then I will enter in this particular instruction, I will particular bracket, and I will run this to line, and then I will re-execute and recheck this value of I with 0. So I must have some statement over here that will basically check the content of I somehow, and depends on that, either the next statement sum equal to I should execute, or sum equal to sum plus j should execute. Now naturally, when we write a program in machine level language or a assembly level language, we write these instructions one by one, and based on condition we will jump to some one instruction to another instruction. So in this line next to the move E, I must have some jump statement so that I can jump from this condition to this condition if condition is false. So let's keep this line blank for a moment. We will decide what I will write over here, but at least this is for sure that for sum equal to sum plus I, what I should write. So if I keep one line blank and then I will write sum equal to sum plus I should write add C. We have already decided that. We will write add C for this sum equal to sum plus I. Similarly, I equal to I minus 1 should be executed also. Right? That means what will happen? This I equal to I minus 1 means I is decremented by 1, right? And for decrement, we have an instruction in 8085 processor, that is what we call DCR. What DCR? What DCR? C, because I is mapped with C. I will write DCR C. And after decrementing C, what actually you should do? After decrementing I should recheck this condition. So that means when this decrement will get complete, I must write one more instruction after DCRC so that I can go back to this instruction where I have kept it blank right now, and then I can recheck somehow, and depends on that, either I will execute add C or I will execute some instruction representing sum equal to sum plus j. And where I should write it? I must write it after this statement where that I have given for jumping over previous statement. So I am keeping one more blank statement here again, and I am writing the sum equal to sum plus j right now. And what I will write? Here I will write add, since it is sum equal to sum plus j, sum means accumulator, so it's add, and j is mapped with C, so I will simply write add E. Now what about these two statements? You see here, basically what you can do, you can write that, what I can write, that after decrementing C, what you can see, that I will jump directly to the previous statement presented written over here. So this jump doesn't require any permission, right? So that's why the instruction that we will write is what we call unconditional jump. Okay, an unconditional jump instruction looks something like what we call JMP. Then JMP some certain address. An address I don't know right now, so I am writing JMP so that I can jump to this particular instruction written over here. And you see, after jumping, based on I not equal to 0, I will take decision to execute add C or add E. Now remember one thing, after executing instruction in one line and then execute the instruction in the next line is not about jumping. Jumping means you are skipping some set of statements, or you are going back to some previous statement. For example, in case of this, from this line you are going back to previous line, that's why it is jumping. But after this instruction, if I execute this array, it's not jumping. So that means the instruction that I have to write is not for executing add C, but for executing add E. So here jump require for executing add E from this line. So somehow I must jump here to here. And this jump is based on whether I is not equal to 0. That means if I is equal to 0, then I will jump. If I is not equal to 0, then I will enter in the loop. That means in opposite way you can say that if I is equal to 0, then you will jump. Right? Now, here you have to understand one thing. So that means basically what we write? We can write, we will jump to this location if the result is 0. Result means after decrementing this I, the result becomes 0. So that's why I can write the instruction that I will write is what we call JZ. Means jump if the result is 0. And this JMP means simple jump. Doesn't require any condition. Okay. And actually, you know, if you want to, if I tell you a little bit in detail, actually there is what we call a flag register, you know, in a computer. Different type of flag registers are there. Flag bits are there actually. A register having various flag bits. Flag bits means these flag bits actually shows the status of the result in different form. For example, I can have a 0 flag. I'm sorry. I can have a 0 flag, or can be carry flag, or can be say for example parity flag. In this way different flag registers are present, and these value are either 1 or 0 because it's a flag bit. So value will be either 1 or 0. For example, 0 flag equal to 1 means the result is 0. 0 flag equal to 0 means the result is non-zero. Carry flag equal to 1 means that after computing the result there was a carry in the output. Some carry out is there. Carry flag 0 means actually there is no carry, something like that. Okay. And this carry is actually similar to the borrow in case of subtraction operation. If you think for some addition, and after addition whether result has an overflow, you can easily understand by the carry flag, checking the carry flag. And what actually the JZ, what I am writing as a programmer, you know what computer check, I mean what your processor check the status of the 0 flag. Because if I become really 0, this 0 flag will become 1. And if this become 1, then it will jump from here to here. Okay. So this is the hidden, reason. Anyway, so right now you don't need to go through all these hidden reasons. Anyway, so let's erase these arrows for a moment, so that because I want to now write the address of the instruction, that where this instruction will get stored. What I mean to say is that when you write a program and try to execute this, what happens? This program is converted to some set of instruction like this. But where this instruction will get stored? This instruction gets stored in some memory location within your RAM. We all know that program gets stored in a RAM, and from the RAM it's run. Actually, the instruction gets stored in the RAM. So if we think that we have a starting address of the instruction started from 8000 location of the RAM, then let's write the, you know, address and memory addresses of all these instructions. And before that, one thing you should know, that how many length of each and every instruction. I mean, move a comma 00h. What is the length of this instruction? How many memory location it requires? If you remember your computer organization class, I hope you can remember that there was different category of instruction based on their length, like 1 byte instruction, 2 byte instruction, 3 byte instruction, and so on. And this 1 byte instruction means only one memory location it will take. 2 byte means 2 memory locations, 3 byte means 3 memory locations. If I consider 1 byte means 1 memory location. So that means in case of, you remember this, that this move A00, this type of instructions are 2 byte instruction. 2 byte instruction means first byte is your opcode, and which is followed by the data in the second byte. So basically this is your opcode. Move A is the opcode, then 00 is the data. Move C is the opcode, then 05 is the data, and so on. But this add C, DCRC, these are 1 byte instruction. Similarly, JZ, JMP, these are 3 byte instruction, because JZ will be followed by memory address which is expressed in 2 byte. This is 1 byte. Why byte? I am saying byte means 8 bit. 1 byte means 8 bit. This is 1 byte and this is 1 byte, 2 byte. Means total 16 bit memory address. As simple as that. At least with respect to 8, since we are talking with 8085, that's why I am writing this in this way. Okay. Similarly, I have to write memory address over here. Now, what memory address we will write, still I don't know. We will realize it soon when we will start writing the addresses. So let's start writing. So I will write what I will write. I will write start with 8000. That means 8000 and 8001. These two locations are required. Move A00H. Then 8002, 8003 is required for these two. 8004, then 8005. I mean 8 is not required to write. I'm writing only in short. So 8004 and 05 is required. Fine. Then JZ require 3 locations. So 8006, 07 and 08. These 3 locations will contain this opcode, then followed by 2 bytes specifying the memory address of what? Of this JMP instruction. Okay. So then add C. Add C means here I should write only 8009, only 1 byte instructions, only one address. Similarly, here 800, not 8010, it's 800A, because we are considering hexadecimal memory address. Okay, our memory address in a hexadecimal form. Similarly, this is in 3 byte again, so that means 800B, 0C and 0D, right? And this is 800E. So these are the memory addresses. These are the memory addresses where basically you are going to store these instructions one by one, right? At least that is what I understand. Now that means I can now write the complete instruction over here. Instead of writing cross, I can complete this instruction. That is, I will write JZ, then this where I'm jumping over here, and this instruction started at 800B, right? So here I will write 800B. I don't need to write 3 instructions, three memory locations. I have to write the starting memory location from where the instruction started. Similarly, for the JMP instruction to go back to this particular stage, this JZ instruction started at 8006. That means JMP I will write 8006. So this is a way by which I can write it. So basically the program that you have written in a high level language, when this high level language is converted to a machine level form, this set of instructions are stored in the memory and that runs. And as a user, you basically get the same result. You will basically get the result of 1 to 5, that means equal to 15 if you want to print this. And this 15 will get stored in the accumulator over here. That's the difference. Okay. Now here one thing we have to look into, that is two things. I have a conditional branching over here because depends on the condition of this C. Either I will go to this, either I will execute add C statement or I will jump to this add E statement. So it's a conditional branch. So if it is a conditional branch, let's write the branch instruction address and branch target address. Okay. So branch instruction address is what? Branch instruction address started at 8006, right? You don't need to write all this, just starting address. So it's 8006. And branch target address is given. This one, and E is the branch target address, so it's 800E. Right. Okay. Now see, so this is an observation I have just written, and this observation will be used after writing another type of coding for the same problem. I mean, this is entry control loop. Now let's write the exit control loop. Let's write the program in an exit control loop. Same thing. I will write sum equal to 0, I equal to 5, and I will write now. I will start writing with do while loop. Do sum equal to sum plus I, right? And I equal to I minus 1. And then I will have a condition while I is not equal to 0, right? And then I will write suppose sum equal to sum plus sum plus j, right? So anyway, I would have written j equal to 10. So if I want to write, you see, this is the same purpose code, but the style of the code is different. Here I have exit control loop, right? In previous case I had entry control loop. Now if I want to write the corresponding machine level language for this one, then what I should write? Let's write it. So already you have idea about writing the corresponding instruction for this type of line. So let's write it one by one. And you know the mapping remains same. I'm keeping the mapping remains same. That is sum mapped with accumulator, I with C, J with E. So that means here I will write move accumulator with 00H. Then move I mapped with C, right? Yes, move C with 05H and move E with 0AH, right? And after that, you see, since I have a condition here, I has to put this JZ. But you see, in this case, this do and bracket doesn't have any significance in high machine level language, okay? Because that means these brackets are given just to put a logical division between the program, but which is not going to reflect in this high level language, sorry, machine level language. So that means after initializing all this, the next statement is this one directly. So that means you can directly write here the add statement, add, and then you will write add what? Add similarly add basically C. Yes, add C, and naturally after that this here C, right? And you see, after decrementing C, you are checking condition of I, and based on that you are taking decision that whether to go back to previous statement or write this, execute this sum equal to sum plus j. So that means I must have some conditional statement over here. Based on that, either I will re-execute add C again, or I will execute the statement this one, that is add E. So let's write add E here. And in between this DCRC add E, I must have a jump statement which based on the condition that I must be not equal to 0. And here you see, I can say in a colloquial language that I will jump to the statement sum equal to sum plus I if I is not equal to 0. So that means in a simple way what I can say that I can jump to this statement if the result is not equal to 0, right? So that means the jump instruction that I will write in this case is what? Jump is result is not 0, that means here it will be JNZ. Jump if not 0. Which is not 0? The result that I was just updated in the previous instruction, that is this here C. Because after in this way, after decrementing I many times, obviously a time will come that the value of present in this register C will become 0. And at that time what will happen? 0 flag will become 1. Already you have idea about this. Over here I have written this. So when 0 flag will become 1, what will happen? Then it will not jump. Okay. Don't think that jump if not 0 means it is taking 0 flag. I'm sorry. Don't think that jump if not 0 means jump if the 0 flag is not 0. Jump if not 0 means as a user, as a learner, you can say jump if the result is not 0. Result is what result? Result of this C updated in the just immediate instruction. Okay. And what will be the address over here? I don't know, because I don't know what is the address of at C right now. So I have to decide it first. So let's write the address again in the same way that I have written in the previous case. So if we again start with 8000, I can say that it's 8000 and 8001. Similarly, it's 8002 and 8003. I'm sorry. 8002 and 8003. 2 byte instruction. 8004 and 5, then 8006, then 8007, then here I will write 8008, but it is 3 byte instruction, so 8008, 8009 and 8000A, right? And then it is 8000B, only 1 byte instruction, right? And you see, I can say that after here I will jump to this add C statement, because that is why required, because this is the 2 statement only present in the loop. So after executing this, after checking this, I will jump to this statement again. That means add C. So address of add C is 8006. That means in case of JNZ, I can say JNZ it should be 8006. So this is my complete code with this approach, right? Now if we mark what is the branch instruction address and what is the branch target address, let's write it. The branch instruction address is what? What is the branch instruction address? 8008, the starting address of the branch instruction, because this is the conditional branch instruction, right? So it's 8008. I'm sorry. 8008. Then branch target address. Then 8008 and branch target is what? I mean, from here I will jump to this statement. That means branch target is 8006, right? 8006. So look into this. The difference in these two cases. If I say its branch instruction address is BI, if I say that that this is basically BI and this is BT, branch target. Similarly for this case, this is BI, branch instruction, and this is branch target. The difference is that here BI is less than, or just opposite way, if I say just not BI, let's write with respect to BT. Branch target is greater than branch instruction, right? The address is greater than branch instruction address. But here you will see that branch target is lesser than the branch instruction. And why this observation is so important? Because you see, since this is entry controlled loop, and according to this picture of machine level language, I can say that this statement JZ should be false. If I run this loop n times, that means in -1 times this JZ will be false, so that add statement will execute, and once this JZ will be true. That means in -1 times branch will be not taken, only last time branch will be taken, so that I can come out of the loop. But in this case I can say just opposite one, because here it is exit control loop. That means after executing this I have to go here, and if this loop run n times, I can say that in -1 times this conversion from it, I mean transfer the execution of the JNZ should be followed by etc. I mean after JNZ, etc should execute in -1 times, so that it runs in -1 times, and last times this JNZ should be false. So that means in opposite way, in other words, what I can say that in -1 times I will have a branch to previous address, but once I will have no branch last time. So whether, that means deciding in this case, predicting branch will be not taken will be better, but for this case deciding branch will be taken will be better, right? Let's write, tell me again in a very short way, that in this case what I have seen, that branch is not taken in -1 times. If branch is taken, I will come out of the loop, which is not expected, because I'm assuming that this program is, this loop is running 5 times, suppose, at least with respect to this program. That means 4 times the loop will run, and 5 times, 5th time I will come out of the loop after 5th time. And to come out of the loop I need to jump. That means if I predict in an earlier situation that branch will be not taken, then in -1 time my prediction is correct. Only once my prediction will be wrong. So as a whole, since I will have most of the time I will have correct prediction, then fine. I mean, you will get correct instruction in the pipelining most of the time. but just opposite scenario in this case. I know that since n minus 1 time this loop should run, that means n minus 1 times after j and z add c should execute. That means n minus 1 time you must have a branch. That means if I predict that branch will be taken, I'm true for n minus 1 times, and only last time I will be false, which will obviously give a benefit to enter correct instruction within the pipelining. So that means how, if I want to design a hardware which want to decide, which want to predict this whether branch will be taken or not, to minimize this number of stalling, what basically hardware is doing? Basically hardware is checking the address of the branch instruction and the address of the branch target. If the hardware finds that branch target address is greater than branch instruction address, it predicts branch will be not taken. If the hardware finds the branch target address is lesser than branch instruction address, then it predicts branch will be taken. In this way, we can design a hardware which can help us to do an early prediction whether a branch will be taken or not, based on what form of program a programmer has written. I have taken this example just to show you two different approaches, because one is entry control and another is exit control. And these two approaches are actually present in most of the programming languages. In most of the cases, either we write program in entry level, entry control form, or in exit control form. So if it is clear for these two cases, I hope the way to decide whether a branch will be taken or not by the hardware will be also clear to you. By the way, I have a mistake. I should write here. I should write here not 800B, because I cannot come back. Then what will happen? It will keep on running within the these two instruction infinite times. I should write here 8 0. Sorry, just a minute. 800E. Yes.